this is Jackie. Today we're going to go over a couple different yin poses and how we can prop for them. Enjoy! To play with our props today, we're going to focus on how we can use the props to either bring greater relaxation into the practice, making our yin practice more like a restorative pose, or how to use the props to actually bring a deeper stretch into the practice, make it a little bit more work, a little bit more effort, finding a new edge. As we go through, we're going to play with 4 different poses: child's pose, ankle stretch, deer, and bridge. And we're going to play with the different props for those. So let's actually start with child's pose. I'm going to first show you what my full expression of child's pose is. With my knees nice and wide, as I slowly bring the body down, forehead to the mat. I could be here with the arms extended, or sometimes if my shoulders are a little tight, I'll bring those feet in, letting the chest go more towards the ground. Maybe bringing the arms behind, hands by the feet, letting those shoulders sink. Now for some of us, this can still be a difficult pose. There are different ways that we can do it. Let's first start off with the easiest. If you cannot be on your knees, if you have a lot of knee pain, that a lot of pressure is going to be there, don't take child's pose. Instead, do what I like to call the dead bug. We come onto our back, bring those knees into the chest and pull them in nice and tight. Let those shoulder blades relax, stretch the neck nice and long. You can be here or extend those arms out. This is a great alternative for child's pose if you cannot put any pressure on the knees. Another way is to use our blocks, depending on how we are with the neck and how we can get that chest to the ground. It may be beneficial to bring a block underneath the seat and one underneath the head, bringing the earth towards you so that the stretch is not as intense and the compression is not as much on the belly and the head. This also allows you to keep the cervical spine nice and long. We can do something similar with the blanket. Having it to where we need a little extra height. If we have issues bringing that forehead all the way down, a little bit more cushion. And you can do any fun variation of these as well. Sometimes if I want something a little extra cushiony, I'll bring and fold the mat so that my knees and shins have to be a little bit softer. And then use the blanket, letting myself nestle in. We can also use the bolster if it's needed. You can take a longer, skinnier one, bring it underneath the body, letting the body rest onto it, and then bringing a head to the block. Nice support for the belly. Or if you have a longer bolster that's a little bit fatter, bringing those knees a little bit in and nestling down this way. The most important thing with our child's pose is we want a sensation of grounding, whether that is grounding down with our third eye through the mat, through a prop, or on our back. That's what we're looking for, and you can do any combination of these props to help get you there. Let's go into the next. So deer pose is one of my favorite poses. It gives you a really good sense of grounding, but it's also a really nice twist to help kind of wring out the organs, work the tummy, work the digestive system, as well as give a nice little opening through the spine as you start to break up that fluid, get it nice and flowing, It's a good stretch through the back, the neck. It's an all-around great pose, but it doesn't mean it doesn't come with any limitations. So I'm going to show you my fullest expression of deer, and then we'll work with different propping mechanisms. With deer, we kind of want to create an M shape in our legs. That's usually my natural sit right now, but we're either working with the knee and the arch or the foot around the side. This back foot could be relaxed. You can keep it flexed depending on how you want to activate this leg. Now as we exhale, we start to twist towards the bent knee, squaring off our body towards the side. Then slowly start to walk the body down into the ground. As we do this, we get a compression through the tummy, working that forehead down to the mat. Body nice and long. Maybe it feels good bringing my gaze over to the right. But like I said, this action of the twist and the body being pressed against the thigh is a lot of compression in the tummy. So if that's too much, or sometimes I have too much tummy to get into the way, there's a couple different ways that we can compensate for that to make this pose a little bit more relaxing and also kind of verge on the end of restorative. One of that is our bolster. By placing it alongside the hip and gently rocking the body onto that. This gives us just enough height, so we're not fully compressing the belly too much, but you're still getting that twist, getting that little bit of work in the midsection. The gaze again can go over to the right, or you can bring the gaze to the left and keep the forehead down. Whenever we come out of this, we push through the hands to lift the body up. Another option we can do as I switch sides is use our blocks here. One way to see if we can get the body and get a little bit of shoulder action in is to give ourselves our twist, bring the arms to the blocks, work those forearms down. Here you're a little bit higher as I kind of take more of a Sphinx-like action, pushing the chest forward. I can also use the blocks to give myself a little bit more stretch as I reach through them, lengthening the body down, reaching through the arms. I can also use the block as a way to rest the head, either to the side, onto the forehead, or giving myself a little stretch in the neck with the twist. If this leg position is a little uncomfortable for you, take a blanket. Bring it over the leg so you can have a little bit softer of a bend here. Giving myself a little bit cushion. This knee isn't completely down, but it's not all the way up here. As I then twist, maybe grabbing my bolster and working my way onto it and gently resting. You can also use your blanket for the body because it is a little bit lighter and not as thick as a bolster. And give yourself a twist as you come down onto it, giving the ground just a little bit higher towards you, a little bit more softening there. You can also work it on the thigh to help comfort the belly as it compresses against the thigh. Working yourself down, maybe bringing your block. When we're in these poses, we're holding them anywhere from 2 minutes to 10 minutes, depending on if we're taking a more restorative practice or a more yin practice, or also depending on who's the teacher. So take the opportunity when you're in these poses that you can actually play with them. Play with how you bring the props in, really internalize that awareness so you can think, well, do I want to take a more relaxation practice or a more relaxation approach to this? Or do I need more of that compression, more of that work? How can I make this a little bit deeper? As we go into the next pose, let's see how we can play with bridge. Bridge is a great way to bring an inversion into your practice if you're not comfortable going upside down. It's also a really good gentle back bend. It's good core work, good glute work, and like all of our other poses today, depending on how we prop it, changes the intensity of it. So I'm first going to get into my fullest expression of bridge, which is bringing the body down into the ground, rolling those shoulder blades underneath, bring the feet and heels together. As you squeeze the core, lift the glutes, hands come underneath, pulling in a little bit tighter, coming up. Now sometimes I like to combine on those toes, bring that foot to the sky. But this is kind of hard to hold for 4, 5, 7 minutes. So we're going to play with different propping mechanisms. A great way, or what you'll see a lot of classes, is a supported bridge, which uses one block. With our block, we want to make sure that we get underneath the sacrum. So for a lot of us, it's kind of like where our underwear band would be. But if you're like me and you like those high-waisted ones, you kind of have to find that little bit of a bridge between the booty and the back. So we're not on the butt meat, we're not all the way back here. We're right on that bridge. Now when we put the block in, we want to squeeze up so we have enough room. Setting it down. When we're in our supported bridge, we still keep those shoulder blades tucked underneath. Those arms are down. Now the knees could stay bent, or you can extend them nice and long, releasing a little bit of tension through the hips, as well as getting a nice stretch in this direction. And depending on where we are with our practice, we have different sides of the blocks that we can play with. This one is just a nice mediating height. It gives me a little bit of a bend, but it's not too much work. Sometimes I like to use this to either start my bridge or end it in my practice. If you want to go higher or even change the length of your blocks, make sure you bring those feet in. Use that core to lift, then change. You can go to a higher setting. Keep the neck nice and neutral, a good gap between the chin and chest. This brings more work and a deeper back bend into your practice. Now, if you start to feel a numbing sensation or pins and needles along the back, as well as numbing in the fingertips and the toes, that means we have a pinched nerve in this area, or that this practice is a little too intense. So we remove and come back down. You also can use the smallest portion of the block and give yourself just a little bit of a baby back bend. A little bit of an inversion, but not a deep one. Whenever we come out, we always bring the feet back in, lift, move, drop those hips down, untuck those shoulders, straighten out the spine, and then counter by bringing the knees into the chest. Now, if any of those bridges are too much and it puts too much pressure on the shoulders, an alternative you can take is a heart bench. What that is we're bringing the bolster nice and long towards our sacrum. Knees stay in as you lower the back down, letting the collarbones expand to the sky, the shoulders drop back, hands are down, knees could stay bent, or you can get them nice and long. This allows this area to open up a little bit. It's a great alternative if any of the bridges are a little bit too advanced or too much work for where you are today in your practice. When we come out, we always push the hands, use a core to lift, or roll off to a side. We can also use the wheel if you have one in our practice. Now make sure it's a nice sturdy wheel. We don't want it bending because we are putting our weight onto this. Now using the wheel when I come into my bridge pose can be a little bit tricky. It's not one that I personally have mastered, but if I'm feeling a little bit more limber that day, or if I want to take my practice a little bit further, this is a prop that I'll bring in. I've been trying to approach it 2 different ways, so we'll see which one looks a little bit nicer. One of the ways is how I get in using the block. Bringing the body down, getting as high as I can go as I bring that wheel underneath, starting to roll it as I can relax and press. Now to me this is a little bit too much because it's pushing my chest into my face, making me compress my neck a little bit. And then releasing and bringing it down. Another way that I've been working on to getting into the wheel for my bridge is bringing it behind the back and slowly rolling over and down, coming onto my forearms. Then walk the body. Then down into the shoulders and adjusting as I need. And I can use the wheel to hold on to, keeping those shoulders tucked. When I approach this direction, I'm a little bit more awkward getting into it, but it does feel much better on my neck. And then to get out of it is the same way. Lifting nice and high, removing, using my core to help guide those hips back down, and then knees into the chest. So those are our bridge different ways to get in and out and prop. Let's go to toe and ankle stretch. So toe and ankle stretch, you're never going to really hold it more than a minute to two if you're in a class. Depending if you're working on a really advanced practice, then you might hold it a lot longer. But what it does is it stretches through the tops of the ankle, as well as our little toes and the little toe knuckles and all these little areas in the feet to help give our practice a nice strong foundation, to wake up any tension that we may have built in here through our daily routines, standing practices. There's a lot that can be said on how we treat our feet. With that, toe and ankle stretch can be incredibly intense and incredibly strenuous. So we're going to play with a couple different ways on how we can really relax this a little bit. The first and most common way, get yourself a squishy mat. Toe and ankle stretches love squishy mats. So with my squishy mat, I'm going to show you my fullest extent of an ankle stretch. As you come down onto the heels, booty's down, hands plant behind, putting a nice bend in those elbows. And then raise those knees to the sky, giving myself a deep stretch along those ankles. The higher I get my knees, the more intense the stretch is. When I do this on just hardwood, on a little bit of mat, I can't go as high. When I do it on a squishier mat, I can go so much higher. So if you don't have a squishy mat, a lot of times you can find these little partial mats that are a little bit thicker than your regular mat. And it's just enough to kind of give that area that you need. So I'm going to triple up my mats right here as I bring my ankles onto it. Dropping those heels back and seeing how much higher I can go. I can actually go quite a bit higher when I have more cushion there. Another option you can do, depending on how the back of your heels and your booty feels, play with your blanket. If you have some sensitivity back there, drop your blanket over the feet, giving a little bit of cushion for you to sit onto, then coming up. If you have a lot of knee sensitivity and this really hurts your knees because you have this compression, bring the blanket into the back of the knees. Releasing some of the compression in there, releasing a lot of the tension that's built up here, and maybe not coming back as far. Either just staying here or giving yourself a little lift. If you're working on just feeling comfortable in this position, don't try to force yourself back to hold that for the 2 minutes. Allow the knees to rest. Feel comfortable with the weight of the booty on the heels and the feet being pressed into the mat. That's your first step. As we go into toe stretch, you kind of play with a couple of the same variations. When we go into our toe stretch, we want to tuck those toes, make sure the little pinky guy comes along for the ride as you sit that booty back. If you want, you can come up a little bit higher on the knees, maybe come into a standing position here, but remember, you're working on holding those for about 2 minutes. So sometimes leaving the knees down is very good. Same thing, it works a little bit nicer on a squishier mat. Sometimes bring in the little partial again, placing it down, and giving you something to press those feet into. Again, you are building up a little bit more compression in the knees because you have the weight of the booty down and the deep fold here. So you can either bring a blanket underneath those knees, give yourself a little bit of support in this stretch, bring the ground up higher to you. You can bring the blanket again over the heels, giving you a nice cushion from the booty to the heels. Or you can work on bringing your blanket into the knee crease. Releasing some of the compression in the knees, a little bit of the tension, allowing you to sit in this position a little bit more comfortable. You can also do this in any other variation. You can combine them, you can do them a little bit separate, depending on how you feel during that practice and where you feel that day. So I hope all of these helped you, and stay tuned for some of our more videos on props and how to use them.